Care to move that the House take note of miscellaneous business.
Mr Speaker, I so move.
I call the honourable member Materia Ture. Tēnā koe, Ms Ture.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, John Key told families today in question time that they can expect that under another 3 years of the National Party, they can expect to keep on struggling with their daily lives while he makes sure that the privileged few continue to improve their lot. So on September 20, Mr Speaker, I'll be asking New Zealanders for their party vote because we must change this government. Party vote Green to change this government. We must not allow another 3 years of a national government that puts our kids and our environment at risk. Sir, New Zealand children are being cheated by John Key and the national government. At every turn over the last 6 years, with every report that's been produced, with all of the evidence that has come before this House, families are still falling behind. More and more children are living in poverty under John Key than ever before. And yet John Key will stand in this House and pretend that they do not exist. Those 45,000 children that Treasury lost last year are still don't exist for John Key. John Key denies that inequality and poverty is growing, denies that struggling families are facing more and more difficulties just to pay the rent, denies these additional 45,000 children who are living in poverty since he took office. Today, sir, when I asked him about those families, he blamed me in part for it, and worse still, he blamed them for their circumstances. They should be grateful, he implied, that John Key didn't cut working for families. They should be grateful he didn't cut working for families, he said. They should be grateful that national debt is greater now because of them. He is blaming New Zealand families for the plight that they are suffering. Now, a working family on $15 an hour with a couple of kids, getting accommodation supplement, getting working for families, is still living below the poverty line in this country, $132 short a week. Now, National is driving New Zealand families backwards and silences those families by blaming them for their circumstances. We need a government that looks out for every child. No child should be living in poverty in a rich and progressive country like New Zealand. Yet, child poverty is a national disgrace. Child poverty is a national crisis. Mr Speaker, what happened? No family should be left living below the poverty line when a parent is working full-time above the minimum wage. Yet that is the case for 40% of New Zealand's poorest children. What happened to our New Zealand values, sir, of a fair day's pay for a fair day's work? What happened to the values of taking care of our neighbours so that we are all doing well, not just the very privileged? Mr Speaker, John Key and his national government has abandoned those values that were delivered to us by our parents and our grandparents and their parents before them. Today, he refused to assure New Zealand working families that they would not still be in poverty in 2 years' time. He refused to ensure that the rewards of the economy would be fairly shared with all New Zealanders. That's not an unreasonable thing for New Zealanders to ask for, that the rewards of the economy as it continues to develop, as we slowly come out of the global financial crisis, as things slowly improve, that the rewards of that should be shared fairly with all families. And yet when asked today if he would guarantee that families who are currently working full-time for more than the minimum wage but who are still living below the poverty line could expect that their circumstances would improve, he refused to guarantee that to them. John Key has abandoned those families. The national government, who don't like to hear this truth, have abandoned these families. Mr Speaker, that was made very clear today in his answers to my question. Mr Speaker, if New Zealanders want our inherent values as a community to be returned to the centre of our decisions as a government, as a parliament, a fair share of the bounty of this country to be distributed, shared amongst all of our families, where every child is doing great no matter what their family circumstances, then we must throw this National Party lot out on September 20. Throw them out, Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Minister Anne Tolley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A few months ago, I stood very gingerly in the middle of